Coming up on Tech News today, Blackberry changes its mind again about being sold. Why is IBM threatening Twitter? And a gas station that wants to scan your face. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, November 4th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Shutterstock.com. With over 28 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 25% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code TNT1113. That's 1113. And by TechServe. TechServe assists U.S. businesses of all sizes with their technology needs, including Apple, Avid, Adobe, and HP solutions. Visit techserve.com/TNT and receive a complimentary iPad deployment assessment. And by RingCentral. We do everything in the cloud. That's why we love our cloud-based phone system by RingCentral. Zero startup costs, and RingCentral is $20 a month per user. Try it now with a 30-day risk-free trial. Buy one desk phone, get a second phone free, up to 20 phones. Call 800-543-9980 or visit ringcentral.com and use our promo code TWIT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Aya Zakter.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show that takes all the tech news in the world, sifts through it for you. We read all those feeds so you don't have to, and we tell you the stuff you need to know, starting with the top 10 stories of the day, the News Fuse. Blackberry has concluded its sale, and the buyer is nobody. Instead, the company will borrow $1 billion from investors, led by former would-be purchaser Fairfax Financial, who will start off the loaning with $250 million. Thorsten Hines will step down as CEO and board member. Former Sybase CEO John Chen will take over as executive chairman of the board and interim CEO. Fairfax had until today to finalize its bid to buy BlackBerry. Fairfax chief Prem Watsa will now return to BlackBerry's board as lead director.
Well into its initial public offering roadshow, Twitter has issued another update to its S-1 filing today. The company was recently issued a letter from IBM alleging that Twitter infringes on at least 3 U.S. patents held by IBM, quote, inviting us to negotiate a business resolution of the allegations. Twitter also raised its IPO estimate to $23 to $25 per share, which is up from the previous $17 to $20. A lot of people thought that that was priced rather low, which is a sign of the company's confidence that it's expecting a strong turnout when it lists, despite potential patent wars.
The FAA relaxed its rules on when you can use electronics on airplanes, so Amazon has thrown everyone a deal for one day only. Amazon has a one-day-only thank you FAA sale today. If you buy a Kindle on November 4th, you'll get 15% off if you use the promo code THNKSFAA at checkout. Thanks, FAA, without the A. The offer applies to the Kindle Fire HD, and the Fire HDX, but not the Paperwhite.
You should really thank the FAA by buying an air traffic controller, a Kindle. Google Glass, still an experimental piece of hardware, don't forget, has taken a step towards user-friendliness. Instead of having to visit a Google office to get in-person instruction on using the device, new Glass owners are invited in by friends and can have the glasses shipped to them, but they're still invited to a Google Plus Hangout that takes them through the setup process and gives them a little lesson in the history of glass.
You know what improves the capacity and efficiency of hard drives?
No.
Well, I'm going to tell you. It's helium.
Oh.
It's helium! Western Digital has announced that the HGST subsidiary has begun shipping the new 6 terabyte UltraStar HE6 hard drive, a model that seals the spinning disk platters inside a hermetic chamber filled with helium instead of air. Why? Helium has just 1/7 the density of air, so it reduces the turbulence caused by spinning disks and the heads that move around to read and write data. That translates to lower power consumption and less heat waste in the data centers that use these drives. If you're wondering how much less, Western Digital says the power used per terabyte drops 49%.
We put helium in everything now. Yeah. Apple's lost a top iOS engineer. Henry Lamoureux is retiring from his position as iOS engineering vice president. Now, Lamoureux was in charge of developing the apps that come with iOS. He also was one of Scott Forstall's top lieutenants. He was with Apple since 1990.
Windows Phone is more popular than iOS in Italy, according to July through September numbers from Cantor World Panel Comtech. Microsoft's share is made up almost entirely of Nokia phones and rose to 9.2% of sales in Europe's 5 major markets. That's UK, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain. Research from Counterpoint kept the good news flowing for Nokia as the manufacturer passed Motorola to take 4th place in worldwide smartphone shipments for the third quarter of 2013 with 4.4%. Apple and Samsung are neck and neck at the top with about 34% each, followed by LG at 8.6%.
Samsung has agreed to license Nokia patents for 5 more years and has agreed to pay Nokia additional compensation starting on January 1st, according to a statement from Nokia today. The amount will be settled in a binding arbitration expected to be concluded at the end of 2015. The previous agreement was set to close at the end of this year, so the timing's very good. After agreeing to sell its handset division to Microsoft back in September, Nokia's largest business going forward is networking equipment and generating licensing income from its patents.
The U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear an appeal in a class action lawsuit against Facebook. The company had agreed to pay $9.5 million in the suit for alleged violations of privacy rights regarding their Beacon ad service, the now defunct service. 4 members of the class disagreed with that settlement and appealed to the Supreme Court. Court's decision not to hear the case means the settlement is now final.
Pictures of Valve's prototype steam machines have hit the internet. What does it look like? It looks like a small black rectangular pizza box PC with a big circle on one side and 2 USB ports on the front. Another picture shows it in white or in black. These prototypes were built using off-the-shelf computer parts, so the final product will probably look a little different. The steam machines are expected to be shown off at CES in January.
Is there pizza in it?
I don't think so.
Or helium? No, nothing? Okay.
Soon.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Shutterstock.com. You can find the perfect image or video for your next creative project and not have to worry about paying a boatload of royalty fees or trying to skirt around the law somehow. It doesn't matter what you're working on, website, publication, advertisement, video, any other type of project. I used it for my book trailer, both videos and this stills. You can choose from over 28 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. Lots of the contributors to Shutterstock are pros, professional photographers and artists, and Shutterstock reviews each image individually for content and quality before they add it to the library. But it doesn't slow them down. They add 20,000 images every day. So every time you visit, you're going to find something new. You choose the image pack or monthly subscription that works best for you. The basic subscription gives you 25 images a day. You can download any image in any size, and it's really easy to use. Sophisticated search tools that I love. You can drill down by subject, obviously, but by color, by file, by gender, by emotion. And I was looking for an angry picture, and that works. You just type in angry, you get a bunch of pictures of angry people. Shutterstock is a global marketplace, too. Go try it out. You don't have to sign up to pay for it. You just get a free account. Start looking at the images. You can put them in one of the light boxes to collect the ones you're thinking of buying, and you can even share those light boxes. Once you think, hey, you know what, I need to purchase these, use this offer code TNT1113, and new accounts will receive 25% off any package. That's Shutterstock.com for 25% off new accounts. Use the offer code TNT1113. And we thank Shutterstock for their continuing support of Tech News Today. So you can show your support for us as well by checking them out. All right, let's gather around the old round table, talk about some of these stories in the news today. I'm very happy to have back on the show David Hewlett, father, writer, director, actor, nerd. You probably recognize him from Stargate Atlantis as Rodney McKay. David, how's it going?
Very fine, very fine. Yourself?
I'm doing well. We have a Canadian story to lead us off today in your honor.
Perfect. Yes, thank you for putting Blackberry in the news for me.
Right, exactly. It was just for you. I wish it was a happier story. It's not a horrible story, but let's start off right there. No longer for sale. They're going to borrow $1 billion basically with convertible notes. Fairfax Financial basically couldn't get the people together to buy BlackBerry, so they're going to take $250 million and loan it, and they're going to get other people to loan the money. They're also swapping out the CEO. Thorsten Heinz will step down, I believe soon, by the end of today or tomorrow. And John Chen, another Canadian CEO, formerly of Sybase, will become executive chairman of the board and interim CEO. David Kerr also steps down along with Heinz. Like we mentioned in the news, Fuse Prem Watsa comes back on the board from Fairfax Financial. And this is all expected to be done within the next 2 to 4 weeks, by the end of the month. Interesting to know, The Verge linked to this article on InfoWorld from 2010, where John Chen was talking about turning around Sybase. When he took Sybase over in 1999, apparently Oracle had all but crushed them, and he turned them around. One of the things he said I found very interesting. He said, that's why we invest in messaging. He was talking about Sybase at the time. That's why we invest in messaging. That's why we invest in how to channel content. That's why we invest in how you manage devices. That's why we invest in all the encrypting of that information that goes over the airwaves. And that's why we invest in analytics. That's how it ties back to what our core strength has been. Now, he was talking about Sybase, but that sounds like a pretty good description of what you could do with BlackBerry. So, David, not that any of us have any real good idea of what's going to happen, but what's next for BlackBerry? Where do they go from here?
Well, I think we were joking about it earlier, where it's basically they're going to get pulled apart, aren't they? I mean, they've got a few sort of core things that are going to be useful to people. Their messaging, of course, which is always very, very, very good. I mean, it's so funny. I read that Globe and Mail article about them. It was just so sad because there's the most telling one for me was when the guy, I can't remember who it was, who came in and said, "Where's the keyboard?" You know, that's the thing I missed. I mean, I'm on an iPhone. I've been on an iPhone for years now. I was BlackBerry, like through and through, but got sort of lured in with all the apps available for the iPhone. But I still miss that keyboard. Like I would seriously consider a little QWERTY phone now, because they've never got it the same way. It's never been as intuitive as that little keyboard.
One of the weird things about BlackBerry's newer phones, they have that other keyboard, the touchscreen device, and the keyboard has this predictive text idea where you can kind of swipe up. And there's no real way that BlackBerry's actually taken that really cool keyboard autocomplete and put it on the physical, I think it's the Q10. If they could figure out a way to have that, maybe that would give them some kind of boost. But I mean, I don't know if the market for physical QWERTY keyboards is so large that would save them, because they made the best ones, but it's a dying breed at this point. I think pretty much BlackBerry's they're screwed.
Well, also the QWERTY keyboard, I think many of us can agree, it's just easier to type on. But we also have a lot of other alternatives now. You've got voice dictation. In many cases, that works really well. I mean, it's the whole process of figuring out, how to get your thoughts onto a smartphone and then communicate with others. We've got a lot more options than just, hey, give us a physical keyboard so we can text more efficiently. So in that way, even though there's still that kind of like, the legacy keyboard, David, I hear what you're saying. It's like we've moved beyond it. We've solved these problems already and are continuing to solve them.
Yeah, I use on the iPhone. I use just speech to text a lot, but it's still, as good as it is, there's just something about having the physical sense. It's still like texting with frostbitten fingers. You just don't know whether you've got the right keys. Maybe I'm just kicking it old school now. I guess that's it. I miss my keyboard.
Even haptic feedback would be something, right? I have that on my Logitech remote, and it makes a difference because I don't have to keep looking down. I know, like, okay, yes, I've pushed that button when I'm skipping forward or something.
It reminds me, just to really date myself, it reminds me of the Atari when that Atari came out that had the whole plastic, the flat plastic.
Oh
keyboard.
yeah, with the really bad keyboard.
Yeah, it was no Commodore
64. I think, yeah. But the chiclet keyboards like that. I don't even like the chiclet keyboards on the MacBook Pro. I do think it's interesting that John Chen is going to be guiding this company, both as chairman of the board and for a while as CEO. Now, I don't know if this is interim CEO because they really want to make him CEO, or if it's interim CEO because they are seriously going to replace him. But I feel like one of BlackBerry's best bets is enterprise, to become an enterprise solutions company, whatever that means. That's what IBM does. That's what Sybase does. And I feel like that could work for them, coming into companies and saying, let's help you manage how your devices work. That might be a little too close to home with what he did at Sybase. But BlackBerry still is the leader in messaging and encryption and rolling out and managing devices. They're just not, as we've all just said, they're not making devices that people seem to want anymore.
IBM is a perfect example. There's a company that was the top of the PC game and was dying. they just they couldn't compete, and they turned themselves into an information company. And I think you're right. If BlackBerry can do that, then I think that would be genius. Get out of the hardware. Hardware's got to be just tough to be in now, anyways.
Yeah, and I think Thorsten Heinz just demonstrated exactly how hard that is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Although don't worry about him. He's got like $22 million exit package. He'll be fine. Speaking of IBM, what's with them going after Twitter, trying to get some easy money before an IPO, Sarah?
Well, IBM says, hey, Twitter, apparently Twitter's been given a letter, so nobody's suing anybody just yet, but IBM says you've got some, you're infringing on at least 3 U.S. patents that we hold. And Twitter says that the notice that they got from IBM is, quote, inviting us to negotiate a business resolution of the allegations. The patents in question are, well, the numbers aren't really all that significant, but we've got efficient retrieval of uniform resource locators. The second one is a method for presenting advertising in an interactive service. The third is programmatic discovery of common contacts. Okay, well, obviously, if this is something that Twitter has to take seriously, they're certainly going to. This is something that they need to let the public know because, of course, they are in the middle of their roadshow leading up to their imminent IPO. The company, though, says it's ready to defend itself. In their updated S-1 filing, the company says, quote, we believe we have meritorious defenses to IBM's allegations, although there can be no assurance that we'll be successful in defending against these allegations or reaching a business resolution that is satisfactory to us. Now, that sounds a little like, ooh, but you kind of have to just say that. It's sort of like all scenarios need to be recognized. Also, Twitter says many companies in these industries, including many of our competitors, have substantially larger patent and intellectual property portfolios than we do, which could make
be hard for them to admit.
Well, but I mean, that's something that has always been very evident about Twitter. And yeah, they say it can make us a target for litigation. We may not be able to assert counterclaims against parties that sue us for patent, other intellectual property infringement, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, it bundled in with this news. They also raised their IPO price, so they still expect to offer $70 million in shares, but price is going to be a little higher. That shows confidence on Twitter's part, despite this. There could be a little bit of bluffing involved here, but David, what do you think is going on here? Do you think this is just kind of like warfare on IBM's part because Twitter is a little bit vulnerable right now because they've got this IPO that needs to go smoothly, especially since if you think back to the Facebook one, that's certainly something that the company doesn't want to replicate? Or is this kind of like possibly bad news for not just Twitter, but anybody who's a developer and a partner with Twitter going forward?
It feels a little opportunistic to me. Like it feels a bit like, oh, Twitter's in the spotlight. Let's see if we can get a little press and sort of throw some weight around. I mean, they're probably obviously they're legitimate enough for Twitter to have to respond to them. My concern with Twitter is, and I mean, I love Twitter. I use Twitter all the time, you know, because I love to hear myself tweet. But I am a little concerned about it from a stock standpoint. I just don't understand. It feels like an awful lot of nothing. You know, I think they have to respond to all of this stuff because, you know, there's no product there. Like I feel like it's one of those things that with such a fickle internet the way it is, I feel like everyone could just sort of pick up and it's a MySpace to me. I'm very concerned about how it's going to turn itself into a legitimate company because actually make some money. The entertainment industry obviously loves it. It's huge. I mean, it's get to the point where, you know, even in auditions, they'll ask you how many Twitter followers you have, that kind of stuff. But again, sustaining it as a business, I think they're in the public eye right now, and I think, you know, IBM sort of shows up and says, "Oh yeah, don't forget about us. We've got some interest there as well." It seems, yeah, as I say, opportunistic to me.
It is opportunistic. In fact, if you remember, Yahoo did exactly the same thing to Facebook before Facebook's IPO. It's a very clever time to come in and go, oh, you know, I know you're really distracted with your IPO right now, but you owe us money for a patent.
Yeah, exactly.
Because and Twitter and Facebook both had very firm reactions to them, right? But it is harder to deal with that when you've got all this scrutiny on you. Maybe this is part of the reason Twitter was going under the radar. If you remember, they kept their original filing confidential. Maybe they had more than just this to resolve before that. I don't know. I
just think this is more of like just a disclosure thing because you have to say what kind of like liabilities you would have. A potential lawsuit from IBM could be a real problem. So this could have been these talks could have been going on for a while. Thing is, IBM's probably like, hey, you're going to have money. You've been using our patents, and we haven't been charging you at all. Why don't you pay us? I was looking up how much money IBM makes in patent revenue a year. And according to Bloomberg earlier this year, they said $1 billion. So IBM is basically a giant R&D place anyway. They're making tons of money that way. So they're not like some patent troll showing up out of like some bogus LLC showing up. This is IBM. This is what they do. And I'm sure this is going to be just quite like a nice amiable solution of, here's your money, IBM. We'll continue, and we'll have a nice stock price of $25. Good luck with that.
And how do you defend yourself? I mean, how do you, again, with Twitter, I mean, all it is a way of sending short messages back and forth. I mean, yeah, they've added video, they've added photos and stuff now, but the reality is it's how do you defend yourself? It's not like people weren't doing all of these things before anyways. It's just not under the under the umbrella of a company like Twitter. It doesn't feel particularly new or fresh to me. It just feels like it's just sort of, it's designed to be awkward to use from the beginning. It was designed to make you restrict your number of letters and get your message short and concise, and that's it. I would say that it's going to be a target for a huge number of people because there's just so many overlapping technologies there.
And that's unfortunately the state of patent law today and software.
Exactly,
we heard about that gargantuan nuclear patent lawsuit with Apple, Microsoft, Google, and pretty much everyone on the face of the earth with smartphones.
The Rockstar one.
Yeah, the Rockstar lawsuit. We talked about that on Friday. We're back into another wave of those. It seems like they come in waves as this stuff gets mature and the patents mature at the same time as they get popular. It seems so obvious, but that'll lead us down the whole road of whether software should be patentable or not. So maybe we should cut it short there and talk about the Matrix. What is it? Matrix? No, it's why am I blanking on that Tom Cruise movie? Minority Report, like Tesco gas stations.
Yeah, so Tesco is going to start targeting ads for people buying gas at stations using face scanning. Now, they're claiming it's not facial recognition. They're not using eyeball scanners. What happens is a camera is on you when you show up at this Tesco. It identifies your gender and approximate age. Once it's figured that all out, this is to send you an advertisement that's on a video screen in front of you. So then you'll get a targeted ad. Tesco claims that something like the length of someone's hair could be used to figure out gender. So they're not like trying to keep a record. They're also saying no data or images are collected or stored, and the system doesn't use eyeball scanners or facial recognition technology, like I said before. David, is face scanning for targeting advertising going a little too far? I mean, you're at a gas station. Do you need your face scanned?
I just can't wait for them to get it wrong. Like, to start sort of selling, I don't know, female products to some long-haired rocker who shows up to pump gas one day. I mean, it's so funny. There's a series that airs in England, which I absolutely love, called Black Mirror, which deals with a lot of this stuff. I think there's only like 6 episodes, but it deals with this whole sort of the tech culture and sort of what these little Black Mirror, what these iPhones and computers and stuff have how they change our perception of the world. It makes complete sense to me. Why not? I mean, it's the gas station's a perfect place to be sort of pitching things to people. You're standing there, you're bored out of your mind. It's in LA it would be that, or there'd be someone coming up telling you that they've run out of gas and that they need money, and then
just need to get home.
Yeah, exactly. I fell for it a few times, actually. I was like, God, people really have a lot of car trouble here. But I actually think it's kind of smart and fun. I mean, why not? I don't feel like it's a privacy invasion, and I gave up on privacy ages ago, but I guess I'm different. I like people recognizing me. So.
Yeah, it does make a difference how you approach it, right? I look at this and I think, well, a lot of times when I go to the gas station and I see those things playing, I'm sitting there thinking like, I don't really care about this stuff. Like, I am not the person this is targeted at. So maybe this would be better if it actually worked. What I'd really like, though, is to be able to pay with my face. So if it just scanned it like, thank you, Mr. Merritt, your credit card has been debited, done. You're on your way. That'd be fantastic.
That's got security concerns. If I have a Tom Merritt mask or a picture I've printed out, like, hey, Tom, it's on Tom. It's always on Tom. That could be a problem, I'd imagine.
Yeah, no, they're
Lots
not
of
trying to make
people
it easier
headbutting
for
the
you to
screen.
get gas. They're trying to make it easier to show you an ad while you're standing there like a hostage. It's funny.
Like that's going to bring down gas prices too. I don't think so.
No, certainly
not in England. Certainly not in England. I mean, the other thing you've got to worry about, though, I suppose, is if they are doing this technology where they're looking at your face and then selling you things, you are then about to put a credit card in, which so immediately establishes who you are, where you are. I mean, from a privacy standpoint, I could see if you are going to freak out about it. But England's very far ahead with that stuff. I mean, they've had their CCTV cameras around for years and years and years. It's just part of part of like life in England. So I think they are definitely more advanced that way than certainly the States. I could see a lot more people having problems with the States.
Yeah, they're more desensitized, more used to it. Pick your flavor of the word, but it's the same sort of thing. Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor for today's show, TechServe. They're New York's premier authorized Apple reseller and technology provider. They serve creative professionals at all levels, whether you're an individual customer. You don't have to live in New York either. You can be a Fortune 100 company. They work with them too. TechServe carries a full range of Apple products, iPhones, iPads, iMacs, MacBooks, iPods, all that stuff. And they have a range of partnerships. The most impressive one still, you've probably heard me talk about it, is the Delta terminals. If you go to LaGuardia or Toronto or Minneapolis, those Delta terminals all have iPads at all the seats in the lounge. And you can sit there and you check your email. You can order food. You can get your flight updates on it. TechServe is the company that helped OTG Management, and the OTG Management runs the terminals, to roll those iPads out. They know how to handle these sorts of big rollout products, and they do full life cycle management for all your tech needs. Whatever kind of project you're working for, maybe it's a small office where you want people to start using tablets, or a warehouse, or a school. If you're considering adding iPads to your business, why not ensure the project's success with the world's most experienced partner? If your business is considering integrating iOS technology at your workplace, here's what you do. Contact TechServe. It's TEKSERVE today. They'll give you a complimentary iPad deployment assessment. Visit techserve.com/TNT, and TechServe will help you assess your current or future iPad needs and give you the advice to make it a success. They do it from the rollout to the implementation and the support afterwards. They don't abandon you after the project. That's techserve.com, TEKSERVE.com/TNT. And we thank TechServe for their support of Tech News Today. Got those numbers we heard about in the news fuse that were good news for Windows Phone, especially in Europe, Sarah.
Yeah, Windows Phone overtaking iOS in Italy. It's funny, on my way to work this morning, I listened to a long thing on BBC about how Italy's economy not doing well. So perhaps there's just, Windows Phone options that make a lot of sense. That's probably at least one factor. Windows Phone now makes up 1 in 10 smartphone sales across not just Italy, but 5 major European markets, the UK, Germany, France, and Spain being the others. Windows Phone's progress, this is according to the latest report from Kantar World Panel Comtech, says this is driven almost entirely by Nokia sales specifically. For the last 3 months that ended this August, Windows Phone-based devices were 9.2% of smartphone sales in those 5 markets. Nokia's also been showing some growth in other markets, emerging markets, Latin America being one. Nokia has been dominant in Latin America for many years. Majority of consumers in the region own a Nokia feature phone. Kantar says that upgrading to an entry-level Lumia is a logical next step. So in certain markets, it makes perfect sense. There's not even so much marketing that really has to be done. It's kind of just, it's the next phone, it's the newest, it's the best. In the UK specifically, Windows Phone-based devices are just about 11.5% of the market. Android is still in the lead, 58.4%. iOS dipped a tiny bit to about 27%, although Kantar says Apple share is going to come back up once we get into the holiday season. But then you look at something like a huge market like China, where it's just a completely different story. So it's not as if you can say Windows Phone is making huge gains worldwide. It's really in specific markets. Look at China. Android devices are like over 81% of the market, a huge rise from last year. And domestic smartphone makers make up 44% of sales in the 3 months that ended in September of this year, which is compared with 30% a year earlier. So you've got a lot of domestic success in a market like China, although China admittedly doesn't really operate in many ways the rest of the world. But David, do you think that Latin America and perhaps some of these markets that look pretty promising in Europe for Windows Phone are the future for the company?
I'm the worst person to ask about Windows because I don't understand the phones. I've never seen anyone with one. It seems like such a sort of also ran on that. But then I said the same thing with the Xbox. When that came out, I was like, oh, Microsoft, good luck with that. I thought that was gonna fizzle. Then again, I bought a Dreamcast. So, I think I don't think people care. Strangely, in Europe, my sense is that people care less about the type of phone they've got than just that it has the basic abilities they need to text and stuff. I mean, texting took off in in Europe because it was much cheaper. It was a way of saving money. People just didn't chat on the phone the way they do in the States. And I feel like they're a lot more sort of utilitarian about their phone usage. So I don't feel like, I feel in a way that the iPhone has less of an appeal in Europe than it would in North America. That's just my sense. I feel like they'll just, whatever the cheapest phone, the best plan is the way to go. Basically, they see it as a tool rather than it's less of a sexy factor to it, I think.
Go ahead, IS.
I think these kinds of gains for Microsoft are that slow, steady gain that they're going to have a Windows phone that will survive. They can do something that Blackberry can't. They can keep pushing this thing until basically the end of time, because they had a very popular Windows Mobile OS, and that was actually powering a lot of smartphones before that got turned upside down with the iPhone. So with Italy making inroads in Italy, that could probably be a good indicator of where else Microsoft can take over. They probably will become the third OS, behind Android and iOS. But this is a good start, I think.
Yeah, I think Amazon. That's the next story. I think Nokia is benefiting a little from its history here, too. They've always been more popular in Europe than they were in America. And in this article that Sarah's referencing, they mentioned that Nokia actually did really well still in Latin American countries with feature phones. So if they're looking to upgrade from a feature phone to a smartphone, they might likely go from a brand that's familiar to them. And I think that's going to continue for them, but Nokia has never been able to crack the American market. It'll be very interesting to see once Microsoft ends up taking over the handset business for Nokia. Although, they're leaving the headquarters in Finland, but this is going to be a Microsoft operation soon. Will that change anything? Will that insight that Microsoft can provide more directly? They're already working with them, though. I don't know what else they can provide. Will that help them crack the code in the U.S. a little more? Anyway, good news for Windows Phone anyway, and the Windows Phone fans in the audience. Let's talk a little about Amazon's first original TV series. Now, these have been up in pilot form since the spring, but they're ready to roll out the full series for 2 of their comedies, and these will be the first big premieres. So remember when Lilyhammer and House of Cards hit Netflix is kind of Amazon's same attempt. November 15th, we'll get Alpha House. 4 misfit U.S. senators rent a house together in Washington, D.C., written by Doonesbury's Gary Trudeau, and starring Jonathan Goodman, Clark Johnson, Jonathan Alter, and Matt Malloy, and Mark Consuelo. So it's a good cast. November 22nd, we get Betas, a show about 4 friends who want to launch a new mobile social networking app in Silicon Valley. So you got a political comedy, you got a tech comedy, playing up to the popular things in their audience, I would guess. Here's the interesting thing. You've been able to watch the pilots since May. They're going to put the first 3 eps of each of these series up on Amazon Instant Video, so anybody can watch them, no charge, absolutely free. But if you get hooked and you want to watch the rest of the series, you're going to have to subscribe to Amazon Prime Instant Video. And after that first week with those first 3 eps, they'll start doling them out once a week the way you would normally get them over the air if they were on a regular broadcast or cable network. That's different from Netflix, which puts up all the episodes at once. So David, how do you think this compares to Netflix's strategy? How do you think it's going to work?
I've always been a huge fan of Amazon and Amazon Prime, just because as a service, it's great. I signed up for it right away because we just ordered everything from Amazon. Less so now we're up in Canada, but down in California, we were Amazon everything. And I sort of got the instant video sort of by accident. I didn't even realize there was the video at first. I love it. I love the service. I think this is the future. I get much more excited about hearing about Amazon's involvement and Netflix involvement in creating stuff, because it's a whole other market. And for people like me who are sort of writing and directing and acting, that the whole other markets and areas of audiences that just didn't exist before. I gotta say, I much prefer Netflix sort of binge viewing approach. I don't feel like the days of waiting for the next week's episode to come are gone. It also used to drive me crazy watching Batman. So I think I would rather watch them all. I would rather watch them all at the same time. I don't understand why you wait a week. We're living in a culture where no one, just shoot them all, put them up, get on with it.
Yeah, I've heard people make the argument that from a promotional standpoint, it's better to dole them out one at a time, because you build up that anticipation and people talk about it in the intervening week, et cetera, et cetera. I've always wondered if that really makes much of a difference or not. Netflix did say in their last earnings report that they are changing the way they account for the benefit of these binge watching, because the long tail isn't as long as they thought. A lot of the binge watching happens right away and it doesn't carry on as much. Amazon's doing this as an experiment. And it'll be interesting to see what the results of that experiment is, and whether they continue to do this or change it up when they do their next rollout. Ayaz, what do you think?
I think that it's actually more like the other shows I buy on Amazon. So if you're going to go, like I bought Breaking Bad through Amazon. And so every week I would wait and wait and wait to watch an episode. And what would happen is I would be reading about it online, or I'd be read the reviews afterwards. When Netflix just dumps a whole season, when I go to like the TV review sites, I like to read television show reviews. They can't possibly give you everything Orange is the New Black, that whole thing, because it's all been in one day. So if you have it treated like a regular show that's been on network TV, it has that build. And I'll probably be more likely to remember it. I might not remember when it shows up, but I can subscribe to it and get it eventually. So I think it actually, to make it more like traditional TV, might not be so crazy, because that's pretty much how I consume most of my television anyway.
It's sort of like Amazon knows that a lot of us, Breaking Bad is a great example. I mean, I didn't start watching Breaking Bad weekly. I was a season behind, maybe it was 2. So I binged on that, and then I was hooked, and then it made sense, to roll out, and every Sunday I'm, waiting with breathless anticipation along with a lot of other people. So Amazon's kind of like, well, we'll make sort of like a mini version of that. We'll give you 3 episodes so that you're like, oh, I like the show. I can't wait for the 4th. And then they've got their hooks in you.
Like a mini binge.
A mini binge. Yeah, I think it's sort of the best of both worlds. I love to binge on. I love the whole Netflix, like, hey, Orange is the New Black, Sarah. What are you doing for the next 16 hours? Why don't you just go ahead and watch that series? I appreciate that. But yeah, there is something about stringing us along that is, it can feel a little torturous, but I think it works to the benefit of promotion and advertisers and a lot of other people.
It worked for Breaking Bad, certainly. God,
Yeah.
that had us. It would strung us along every single week. But yes, exactly. Yeah. The thing for me was just I'm just impatient. I want to be able to see it all. I was like, we'll have viewing parties. We'll fine. Once a week we'll get together for a viewing party and agree on watching an episode and talking about it or something. But I hate having to wait.
Yeah. We'll see what Amazon does next time around. Meanwhile, Netflix's next step is to make some 4K content available in the stream. What are we going to be able to watch, Ayaz?
Well, right now, not a whole lot. They have 7 videos. Netflix is testing 4K videos in its streaming service. Some of it's basically, this content that they're using is for internal tests. So it's like a bicycle going, and you see it on a nice road. So this is not like amazing 4K video that you're going to be hooked on, but it's a test to see how well Netflix can handle it. A Netflix spokesperson says the company hopes to launch Ultra HD next year. And that statement echoes what Reed Hastings said on the company's most recent earnings call, that Netflix wants to be one of the big suppliers of 4K next year. Obviously, we've seen television sales have not exactly been lighting it up so much lately, because there's 3D gimmicks, there's 4K, 8K, all this stuff. David, do you think Netflix's eventual adoption of 4K is going to drive TV sales?
I don't. No, I'm afraid and again, maybe I'm just sounding old fashioned here, but I went over to a friend's house the other day to try to watch a 3D movie, and there was, glasses and television settings, and we ended up not watching the movie because we couldn't get to work. But it's the 4K thing. It just seems like a gimmicky to me. I know eventually we will move to 4K, but I just for Netflix, I'm like, just concentrate on content. Just get that content going. Make some more shows. Make some more, the Orange show, which I always get the name wrong. There's a number of shows in there that are just fantastic. I'd rather they were spending money on content than getting higher quality video, which eventually, by the time it gets channeled through whatever service provider you have, it's still gonna stutter and cause certain issues as always. So 4K to me, whatever. I mean, it's like, you don't need it. And God for poor actors being seen in 4K. I know, last thing I need.
HD's bad enough, huh?
Yeah, seriously.
Well, I think it's Netflix flexing their muscles. I think they're showing, like, look what we can do. Nobody needs this yet. And what they're not going to make a ton of money off the people who are have enough money to buy a 4K TV right now, who probably already have several Netflix accounts, because $8 a month, it doesn't matter to them. So I'm curious if this is just a way for Netflix to maybe get some more love out of the content providers who say, hey, we're shooting in 4K and we would like to have the splash of releasing in 4K. And Netflix could be one of the first to say we can do that for you. It might help get some content deals, maybe.
Far more telling to me was sorry, I've jumped in. Do you want to keep going, or shall I go?
Go ahead.
I'd say far more telling to me was the fact that they're now teaming up with the Comcast and stuff. The idea of them being put as a channel on these, with the cable providers and stuff. That seems to me, that's more of an indication of where they're going, I think. I mean, and I guess potentially this 4K thing will allow that, because at one point they were sort of getting strangled by the companies because they didn't want Netflix, consuming the whole pipe. But now maybe they're not so worried about that, which could indicate that there's going to be some deals coming up that way.
Yeah, a lot of bandwidth to deliver 4K. That's a good point.
And no kidding.
All right, let's move on to the randomizer. We had a straw poll of our audience today as usual, and 46% of you voted for Google rejecting a Microsoft DMCA takedown notice for gmail.com. Rather hilarious. Torrent Freak, of course, has the story. Microsoft hires a company that goes and looks for violations of Microsoft's copyright and then sends bulk takedown notices to Google. Google goes through them. They publish them in their transparency report, and Torrent Freak found that in and amongst one of the lists of URLs submitted on which Google took no action, mind you, was a submission that Gmail be removed at the URL mail.google.com/mail/u-/1. This is an example of the fact that they don't actually review these URLs before they send them along with the takedown notice. They have a bot that collects them, and one of the bots apparently found a Gmail link.
You got to love Torrent Freak for digging through it for us, though.
Oh yeah, well done, Torrent Freak. Your sweat equity has paid off this time. Yeah,
you made the randomizer. Woohoo!
You made the randomizer. Congratulations. You know they beat out some robots playing rock paper scissors.
I'm so surprised that robot lost in this straw poll. So there's a robot that will beat you at rock paper scissors faster than it ever has before, and 35 people thought that was interesting. But a DMCA takedown rejection actually got 114 votes. I don't know what's going on this Monday.
It's a point and laugh story.
Robots always lose. Robots every time.
So this robot actually lost.
We fear the robots. We don't want them to win. Let's take a break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, Ring Central. As you know, when we built the studio in Petaluma, we did as much in the cloud as possible. We do our lineups in the cloud, we have our email in the cloud, and we wanted our phone to be in the cloud too. And Russell RT guy is now famous as the guy who said, use a cloud-based phone system, and that's why we got Ring Central. Zero startup costs, no PBX hardware to install or maintain. You can get your voicemail in your email. You can get your fax messages on your smartphone. Ring Central also features call functioning programs, the order of the devices that will ring when someone calls your number. Like, it'll ring your desk phone first for certain people, then your smartphone, and vice versa. So you never miss an important business opportunity again. You can even choose the amount of rings before the call goes to the next device. Ring Central offers all-inclusive pricing as low as $20 a month per user. You could start right now with a 30-day risk-free trial, and they have a special offer for our listeners. When you buy one desk phone, get a second phone free up to 20 phones. So call this number designated for our listeners, 800-543-9980. That's 800-543-9980. Once again, 800-543-9980. Or you can go to ringcentral.com and use promo code TWIT. That's ringcentral.com. Promo code TWIT. We thank Ring Central for their continuing support of Tech News Today.
I love that whenever you,
yeah, David.
Whenever you guys do the Ring Central ads, you always give credit to your tech guy for coming up with it. Everyone, Leo does it as well. I love you guys for that. That's
Russell is the most famous telephone recommender in the history of it.
Russell should be paying for advertising dollars now as well.
Seriously.
Getting more. Every
Russell
Ring Central
is in the cloud too. Actually, we never see him. What's on the calendar there, Sarah?
We're now into standard time and everything's different. It smells like wood-burning stoves outside, and the future is bright. Actually, the future's not really very bright. It gets dark early. AOL earnings are tomorrow, though. Also tomorrow, starts tomorrow, runs through Wednesday in San Francisco, is GigOhm's Roadmap Conference. A lot of big names talking at that one. Looking ahead to next week, Motorola has teased the Moto G launch. That's happening on November 13th. The Nintendo Wii Mini is headed to the U.S. somewhere around mid-November. It'll be priced at $99.99. And Ingress, which is Google's augmented reality game, is going to be open to all Android users starting on December 14th.
Very nice. How about some emails?
Incoming message.
Sure. We got an email from Grant on Tuesday's episode 871. Tom was wondering why anyone used travel agents anymore. We use the aggregators to find the lowest price, then print it out and take it to our travel agency. They have always matched the price, and what is more valuable is one phone number to call. If you've ever tried to solve a problem on your own with a hotel, airline, or resort, it can sometimes take hours if you get resolution, if at all. With a travel agency, that could take potentially be representing thousands of recommendations, makes the calls. Things get sorted out in minutes. At least that has been our experience. Keep up the great work.
Huh. That's smart, actually. You got to find a travel agent that'll work that well, I guess. That's my distrust, because I don't think I've used a travel agent. Well, on my honeymoon, we used a travel agent in 2003. But otherwise, I don't know. Do you guys use travel agents?
Someone else can screw something up. Yeah.
Might try it.
Yeah.
It's like if you just called a travel agent like a TaskRabbit, I think people would be okay with it again.
Yeah, you got to have a good travel agent. So then you have to go on Yelp and find a good travel agent, but then nobody on Yelp uses travel agents, so there's no reviews. It's just a never-ending circle. But I like the scenario that Grant describes here. That's pretty smart. Well, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thank you, David Hewlett, for joining us. It was a pleasure, as always, my friend.
Love it. Anytime.
Anything you got going on that you want to tell folks about? Point them your way, even if it's just your Twitter feed or anything?
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, I guess dgeek.com. I'm about to revamp that. And I've got a show called Darknet Files, which is available right now on YouTube, which I did the first episode of, which would be kind of fun to watch. If you like horrible, gory, creepy things that keep you up at night, that would be the thing to watch right now.
I would definitely like horrible, creepy things that keep me up at night. I'll check that out.
There you go.
And dgeek.com, that's like a discussion area, right?
Yeah, it started off as, it was just sort of started for fun as a website for fans, and then I hated all the talking about me, so we just started a forum basically. And it's just become this great place where various people geek out about. I mean, everyone's a geek about something, so everyone gets a place to chatter about what they do. And it's also nice for me for my fickle hobbies and geek interests. So
Right,
one damages into motorcycles, and another day it's Magic the Gathering. So
keep hopping around. That's awesome. dgeek.net. Thank you, David.
Thank you. God.
It's time for Twit's annual audience survey, ladies and gentlemen. We want to hear from you. It helps us a lot in lots of the things we do. So if you got a chance, you got a moment, go to twit.tv/survey. Let us know what you think. It only takes a couple minutes, and it's completely anonymous. Well, as anonymous as anything on the internet can be these days, but we're going to make it as anonymous as we can. Your feedback helps us make Twit even better, and we thank you for your continued support. Don't forget, you can email us at tnt@twit.tv. Give us a call, leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you like watching stuff on YouTube, you can do it that way too, youtube.com/technewstoday. And of course, subscribe to the podcast, get the show notes, and more at twit.tv/TNT. We will be back tomorrow when our guest will be Jeff Gamet from Mac Observer. See you then.